Why controllers? It's controllers. Why? Everyone on the internet always ends up saying, the keyboard and mouse is so much better. It's so much better. Well, yes, but also no. The keyboard and mouse is very good at a lot of things. That includes play games, send angry emails to your aunt, and also pay bills. But the thing that a keyboard and mouse does very well doesn't always translate to gaming very well, which is why the controller was invented and passed on to consoles. It's just a little bit more intuitive when you're looking at it the first time. When you grab a controller, your thumbs immediately go to the sticks and you want to play a game. Now that being said, the keyboard warriors down in the comment sections will say, oh, the keyboards are better for first-person shooters. Well, that's all down to the person. And I would even say the controller's better at some games than others. This leads us to Pro Controllers. Now I think Pro Controllers have come a long way and have added a lot of functionality that our keyboard just can't do. Bringing us to 8-Bit's contender in the ring, the ultimate Bluetooth controller.
Let's look
and see if I can really throw out that keyboard. I can't. I still have to pay bills.
Okay, so
what is a Pro Controller versus a regular controller? Well, a regular controller is generally a standard controller that comes with a wire. Generally has less buttons than a standard controller. So if we're thinking about Xbox, the standard Xbox controller that comes in the box. But with this Pro Controller, you get a few different options.
The features of 8BitDo's ultimate Bluetooth controller are 2 Pro back paddle buttons, custom profile switch with 3 profiles that you can change on the fly, a mode switch button that allows you to go from Bluetooth to 2.4 gig wireless with the dongle, the ultimate software on PC and mobile device, Android and iOS, which we'll talk about later, motion control for the Switch only, vibration, charging dock, which we'll talk about more later. It's compatible with Switch version 3.0 and above, Steam OS, Holo 3.4 and above, Windows 10 and above, and I've also been able to pair it to plenty of different Bluetooth devices. The controller mode has switch mode and X input mode. The connectivity is Bluetooth 5.0, 2.4 gig connectivity, and also the USB-C if you want to plug it in and play. The entire package includes the 8BitDo Ultimate Bluetooth controller, a USB-C cable, charging dock, 2.4 gig adapter. The battery life is a 1000 milliamp hour battery, which gains you a 22 play hours with 2 to 3 hour charging time, and it's about 228 grams.
So the overall build quality of this device is absolutely fantastic. The plastics they've chosen for the thumbsticks, the buttons, and the finish of the paint on this controller is just top-notch. They have different types of paint on the device at different points where you're going to be handling it different amounts. So on the buttons, they're gloss, but on the actual controller body itself, it's a little bit more matte and a little bit more resistant to fingerprinting versus some of the other controllers that are just soak them up. This is also with the back triggers in addition to the joysticks, which I think the choices of materials they've used here are fantastic and make a solid controller in your hands versus a lot of the other cheap ones you see coming out. And cheap is not one of those things that this controller does. It doesn't really cheap out on anything. So let's look at the functions of the extras that you get for this controller.
Some of the extra features we have here are the ultimate software. So the ultimate software, you could do a bunch of different things, like remapping all of the buttons to current buttons that the controller has. You can't use different inputs from a keyboard, but you can use any of the inputs that are in the software. I wish you could use different inputs from the keyboard, but that's not really possible. You can also remap the sticks to different sensitivities for direction if you would like to have it more or less sensitive based on the Hall effect sticks. And the magnetic sensing sticks versus the ones that have springs and rubber pads in them are great. They They work very well and are very responsive and won't get stick drift for you forward runners. It can also do macros that can be bound to any of the buttons that you would like, in addition to changing the triggers to the same way as you would the sticks. So if you would like to have them end at a different point in the travel on the trigger, you can do that as well. And this software basically works the same on PC, Android, and iOS. One of the other features that we have is the dock. It has pogo pins on it that when you slap the controller down on it and it's plugged in, it will immediately start recharging your battery and give you a little indicator light without really fussing about it. So this brings us to another feature of the controller, which is the 2.4 gig wireless dongle. This dongle is great and it has a very nice texture on it and it looks very premium. They also made a spot in the dock for it so that you don't either forget it or misplace it down the road. So for this entire package and how much you get, I think the $70 price point is pretty spot on. And if you'd like to check it out, link down in the description for it on Amazon.
So this brings us to the downsides of this device. Now, this is a fantastic controller and I would recommend it at its price point currently. But let's get to some of the gripe points that I had. So this controller does not have an easily removable battery. It doesn't have a door on the back that you can pop out a rechargeable battery. They have done this in the past, and I really liked that function to be able to replace the battery over time, because I have an entire drawer of dead controllers that need battery replacement. It just makes the controller last longer with Hall effect thumbsticks that aren't going to wear out and get stick drift. I wish that the battery was easily replaceable. This brings me to another one of my little gripes, which is the shape of the controller. It's a bit square. I don't mind it that much, but I did notice it going from the Xbox controller over to this controller. They definitely took a lot of their styling from the Nintendo side of things. This controller is pretty square, and if you don't like that, how your wrists sit while using this controller, that might be an ergonomic thing that you want to think about, but that's going to be down to the individual user. I just thought I would mention it's a little bit square. So my last gripe is kind of along the lines of this one, which is the actual size and shape of the device. The back buttons on this device, the triggers, are just a hair smaller than I think they should be on a controller of this size. Now, this might be due to them wanting to put a controller out that fits more hand sizes, but if you look at the Xbox controller trigger buttons versus this one, you could definitely tell that they're on the smaller side of. And again, this might be a style choice that they went with. I just thought I would bring it up because I noticed when looking directly down at them, you could see the top buttons over them, and they look a little tiny on that big square forehead of the controller there. So that's all I'll mention. Other than that, I really like it. And I think the dock's great. But it's still just this, and the other videos that I have about Steam Decks and controllers are really what you should be looking at next. They, like everything else I keep talking about, just for some reason haven't come with pickles. I keep asking, and nobody's gotten back to me on how I can get pickles to people or receive them for making these videos.